And today we continue with our hearings on Bill C-45, an act respecting cannabis and to amend the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, the Criminal Code and other acts. And today our subject is particularly with regard to the producers, retailers, and one mayor. We have two panels today. This panel is scheduled to go from 3 till 5. And then panel 2 from 5 to 6. Trusting we have no ringing of bells from the Senate, which could interrupt us. But anyway, let's get into it. And I'll ask all of our presenters, we have 4 of them in this first panel, if they could give us opening comments up to 7 minutes. And since I have a history and a partiality towards mayors, I'm going to start with the mayor of Smith Falls, Shawn Pankow.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, honorable senators. It's truly my privilege to have the opportunity to address you here today. I've been invited to speak on behalf of the 9,000 residents of Smith Falls, a community which has in a very short period of time risen to become the vanguard to the impending legalization of cannabis. Although the burgeoning cannabis industry in Canada has led to new employment opportunities and innovation in communities across the country, Smith Falls stands out as the best example of the incredibly positive impact of a changing landscape. Smith Falls is a community on the rise, and we are in the early stages of an economic renewal like nothing we've experienced before. But it wasn't always like this. When I was elected mayor of Smith Falls in 2014, I never imagined I would be addressing the Senate of Canada on legislation that will legalize a natural herb. A plant that had been used legally for medical and recreational purposes for thousands of years, but of course was made illegal in Canada in 1923. We may never know the reasons why it was lumped in with heroin, cocaine, and other more dangerous drugs, with little recorded discussion or reasoning. While Canada was one of the first countries to criminalize cannabis use, we must have appeared to be ahead of our time when the U.S. Federal Bureau of Narcotics initiated a strong propaganda campaign of falsehoods condemning marijuana, suggesting it would lead to delirium and insanity. And though we may never know what motivated the U.S. to start this global movement that included cannabis and the war on drugs, we do know it led to many lives ruined, police resources consumed, and untold billions of dollars wasted trying to control and eliminate the use of an herb that have been enjoyed harmlessly for centuries. Looking back, it's appalling to consider today the tens of thousands of Canadians annually left with a criminal record due to possession of marijuana. The town of Smith Falls stands at the centre of Eastern Ontario and is the heart of the Rideau Canal. It was the construction of this waterway in the late 1820s that turned Smith Falls into a centre for enterprise, as the fast-flowing waters of the Rideau served as a source of power for numerous mills, enabling area farmers to participate in the provincial economy. It was this developing economy and our central location in Eastern Ontario that led to the town embracing the new technology of the late 1850s, railroads. The town served as a crossroad for multiple railways and, more importantly, as a divisional centre for Canadian Pacific Railway. At its peak, CPR employed over 1,500 men. Growth at farm implement manufacturer Frost & Wood, Malleable Castings, and numerous other enterprises formed the foundation of my town's industrial heritage. The construction of the Ontario Hospital School, later named the Rideau Regional Centre, led to 1,500 good-paying provincial government jobs, serving the 2,500 residents of this facility. But numerous other industries came and went, but it seemed every time one enterprise was closing its door, another one was opening. Diesel engines changed railway operations in the late 1950s, leading to the loss of hundreds of jobs. Around the same time, Frost & Wood closed down its operation, leading to the loss of hundreds more. However, it wasn't long before a large American candy maker, Hershey's, found its way to Smith Falls and started operations in 1963. Over time, Hershey Canada expanded its operations and its number of employees from 184 in 1970 to 750 by 1990. Smith Falls embraced its role as a chocolate capital of Ontario, welcomed tens of thousands of visitors annually for tours of the facilities, including a stop at the chocolate shop. At one point, we branded our town with Hershey's. It was the icon on our water tower. These and other industries led to a period of strong economic growth and a high availability of good-paying industrial jobs. However, this all changed in February 2007 when Hershey's, quite unexpectedly, announced it was closing its Smith Falls plant. This announcement came on the heels of the province's plan to shutter the Rideau Regional Centre. So in a very short period of time, these losses, combined with layoffs following the closure of other local manufacturers, resulted in close to 2,000 lost jobs in our community of 9,000. In many cases, it left both wage earners and a family without employment. It led to the downturn of our local economy as a ripple effect of lost wages reverberated through our town. Suddenly, Smiths Falls was national news for all the wrong reasons. The people of Smiths Falls have long been known as strong, resilient people. However, the continued effort of finding challenges at every turn began to take its toll. People were forced to sell assets, liquidate retirement savings, sell their homes, and change their lifestyle considerably. People who were once confident and hopeful about the future became immersed in discouragement and uncertainty. It was the experience I saw through the lives of my clients in my professional life as a financial planner that motivated me to run for town council in 2010. By 2014, when the next municipal election came around, little had changed, except for the small company planning to grow medical cannabis. In the fall of 2013, a group of entrepreneurs had a dream to get a license to grow medical cannabis in the former Hershey chocolate factory. Early projections suggested they could eventually hire 100 people and maybe occupy 1/3 of the 450,000 square foot building. Our council was completely supportive. Smiths Falls had a glimmer of hope. Just imagine what could happen if someday marijuana could be legalized for recreational use. Flash forward 4 years, and Smiths Falls is experiencing an unprecedented economic renewal. A town once known for nothing but bad news was now making headlines across the country for embracing a new and innovative industry. Canopy Growth Corporation has taken root in our community, and a future once clouded in uncertainty now is a shining star lighting our way to a much more prosperous future. The impact to date has been very impressive. Between 2017 and 2018, Canopy will have invested $150 million in the Smiths Falls campus, with $70 million more coming before the end of 2019. Building permit applications, representing total construction volume and permit fees, in Smiths Falls in 2017 were far greater than the sum of the previous 4 years combined. The level of construction thus far in 2018 is now 3 times greater than the total experienced in 2017, now approaching close to $100 million. Although much of this can be attributed to the expansion and renovation of the Canopy campus, now spreading across Hershey Drive, construction volumes and new home builds are on the rise across town and beyond. We're now facing a housing shortage as new Canopy employees move to our community and settle permanently. We're experiencing a very hot housing market as these employees, local residents now working at Tweed, and others are competing for homes, driving up prices and initiating bidding wars. In the words of a realtor with 4 decades of experience in our community, we have never seen anything like this, and it's only just beginning. With over 500 people now working out of the Smiths Falls campus and an expectation to more than double this number in the near future, the impact of tens of millions of dollars in payroll is multiplying through our town, supporting numerous local businesses. Well, I suspect the cannabis trade has been active in our community for generations. Its underground economy had, of course, very little, if any, positive impact. I hope the legislation soon passed by our government commits to regulated licensed producers and squeezes out any trace of black market activity. While we're fully supportive of Canopy Growth Corporation and its vision for an expanded product line, limited only by ingenuity and innovation, I do encourage senators to challenge the potential for large-scale commercial outdoor cultivation of cannabis. I believe the Government of Canada unintentionally helped create the illicit trade of cannabis with the Opium and Drug Act of 1927. I'm concerned permitting commercial outdoor cultivation by regulation will increase the possibility of continued domination by the illicit market and will discourage continued investment by licensed producers like Canopy. Canopy is quickly rebuilding the industrial tax base we relied on heavily for most of the town's history. We weathered the tsunami of economic upheaval, and laid a solid foundation for future generations. Canopy has quickly endeared itself to all 9,000 of our residents, and through its philanthropy has provided significant level of support to our community. Smiths Falls Town Council set strategic priorities for this term and established a vision for 2025. Paramount to our objectives was growth in our population, a diverse economy with a strong business sector, attracting new manufacturers, and a fully developed industrial park. At the time, these seemed like lofty goals to accomplish in a decade. Thanks to Canopy Growth Corporation, it looks like we're well on our way to checking these items off our list much sooner. Thank you for your opportunity, for the opportunity to share our story today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me introduce the other three members of this panel. They're from the industry. Canopy Growth has been mentioned. Bruce Linton is here from the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Canopy Growth. We have from Cannabis Canada Council, Allan Rewak in there, and from Hydropothecary, Dr. Terry Lake, Vice President, Corporate Social Responsibility. So let me now proceed to ask for the comments of the Cannabis Canada Council. Mr. Rewak.
Good afternoon. I'd like to begin today by thanking the committee for the opportunity to be here and provide our thoughts on Bill C-45. As was mentioned earlier, my name is Allan Rewak, and I am the Executive Director of Cannabis Canada, the trade association for licensed producers of medicinal cannabis under the ACMPR. At our most recent annual general meeting, just over a month ago, we underwent a very important and positive transition. The members of the Cannabis Canada Association, the Canadian Medical Cannabis Council, and large-scale independent companies collectively decided to unify and create one common voice for our sector, which will operate on a go-forward basis as the Cannabis Council of Canada. Our newly strengthened and enlarged organization can now confidently say that we represent the vast majority of licensed producers in this country, including all large-scale producers, medium-scale cultivators, and new entrants into our marketplace. We believe that this common and inclusive framework will be a significant asset to policymakers such as yourselves as we look towards the further regulation and design of our growing sector. Today, on behalf of our industry, I'd like to speak towards three primary recommendations related to C-45. Firstly, we would respectfully encourage this committee to move C-45 forward as expeditiously as possible. The commitment to better regulate and control the sale of adult consumer use cannabis was a key foundational election promise in 2015. The result of that election was a majority government. C-45 fulfills the promise made to Canadians, and as such, we believe that it should come into force as quickly as is reasonably possible. Secondly, we would recommend, as His Worship the Mayor recently said, that we amend C-45 as to prohibit the allowance of large-scale commercial cultivation outdoors. The reasons for this are as follows. We believe that there is a heightened degree of risk for diversion into the illegal marketplace from outdoor cultivation. Secondly, due to the nature of the cannabis plant, we are concerned that cross-pollination and contamination could occur with indoor greenhouse crops from male plants outdoors. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, we are concerned around the danger of unintentional exposure to agricultural pesticides. Cannabis Canada has submitted to you for your consideration through our briefing note an amendment that we believe would address this issue. Thirdly, we'd recommend that this committee also expand the list of allowable dosage forms in Schedule 4 of the Act. As it currently stands, we believe this schedule of the bill is overly prescriptive and hinders the development of new delivery modalities for medical patients. Considering that we are looking at the potential introduction of new dosage forms for adult consumer use in 2019, we believe it is prudent and responsible to expand Schedule 4 at this time for medicinal patients. We have suggested in our briefing note an amendment to this effect for your consideration. In closing, I'd like to extend my deep gratitude to this committee on behalf of my industry for the opportunity to be here, and we are more than ready to answer any questions you may have related to our submissions when appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll call upon Bruce Linton, founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Canopy Growth Corporation.
Great. Thank you, honorable senators. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon, and I look forward to answering your questions on our views on C-45. I thought it might be helpful if I gave a little bit of background on Canopy Growth. As His Worship has introduced, we're proud to say that we're the first publicly traded company that's ever been headquartered in Smiths Falls, Ontario. No more branch plants. And in the town of 9,000 people, this has become the topic of the town. In 2013, we located our head office in the main production facility of what was the Hershey plant and had been closed in 2008, putting at that time 600 people out of work. As the mayor's indicated, we have about 1,000 people working at Canopy across Canada now, and about 500 of them are in Smiths Falls. More, I think, importantly, we have 1,200 open job recs right now across our country. We're pleased that some of you were able to visit the facility earlier this year and learn about the operations and meet some of our team members. Since our beginning, we've produced more than 13 million grams of clean, reliable cannabis products to provide to our medical customers, and we currently serve about 71,000 customers in Canada directly through Canada Post. In April 2014, Canopy Growth became the first federally regulated cannabis company in North America to be publicly traded. We followed that with becoming the first complete bought deal with a Canadian bank to fund our operations, the first cannabis company to be audited by Deloitte, the first to diversify our platform to include greenhouses and indoor, and the first to acquire a major competitor, and the first to be listed on the TSX proper exchange and part of the Composite Index. We were the first Canadian company to export to Germany, and we've recently announced that we expect to be the first cannabis company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I'm delighted that Mayor Pankow is here this afternoon. Mayor Pankow and his colleagues in Smiths Falls community have been great partners. In fact, upon our arrival at Smiths Falls, we began investing in the community and hiring locally. It's been our mandate. As we go across the country, we look for local acquisitions of talent, supplies, and try to keep it local. Our Canadian operations since beginning in Smiths Falls, in 2017 we contributed about $166 million to Canada's GDP, including $32 million in goods and services, $30 million in wages and benefits, and about $31 million in capital expenditures. So far in 2018, we've spent over $31 million on additional capital expenditures across the country and are accelerating that rate. We currently operate in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, and are constructing 2 new greenfield opportunities in New Brunswick and Newfoundland. By the time we're done next year, we expect to have over 3,000 employees across the country. But to keep things active, we're also expanding internationally. We're active in seeking or licensed in Germany, Jamaica, Chile, Brazil, Spain, Denmark, Czech Republic, and Australia. We've engaged in production and research partnerships also with the state of Victoria in Australia. We were the first cannabis producer to introduce compassionate pricing to make medical cannabis affordable for patients. We remain proud to continue the support of the patient rights for access to legal cannabis. Our commitment to medical education has and always will be unwavering. We're the first to offer Maine Pro M1 accredited continuing medical education programs to Canadian doctors. We agree that road safety is a leading concern and needs to be addressed as cannabis legalization comes forward. Education is the key, and to help prevent an increase in incidents of impaired driving. To this respect, we facilitated and funded a 3-way partnership with the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition and Mothers Against Drunk Driving Canada to develop a responsible driving campaign. We also believe that when cannabis is legalized for adult consumption, it's important that there's not a corresponding increase in youth usage rates. Canopy Growth has brought together parent action on drugs with Canadian Students for Sensible Drug Policy to create evidence-based resources for parents and other adults to have informed conversations with youth to make healthy, responsible decisions about cannabis use. The Canadian AIDS Society has been diligently working on issues related to medical cannabis since 2004, and we're thrilled to be part of a multi-year partnership to fund the development of Canadian guidelines on the use of medical cannabis, producing the kinds of tools physicians need to feel more comfortable assessing patients and their need for cannabis. Finally, on April 20th this year, we announced the founding creation of the Tweed Collective, an initiative founded on the principles of progress, growth, and community development. Over the next 4 years, Tweed Collective will invest $20 million in communities in initiatives that will transform where and how we live meaningful ways. Our commitment to research, we have formed Canopy Health, a cannabis incubator focused on developing research, clinical-ready, whole plant-based drug formulations. The ultimate goal is to validate diversified treatment options for Canadians. The foundation of our research and development plans is to improve the quality of life of Canadians who are suffering from acute and chronic illness. We have medical cannabis research focused on dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, Crohn's disease, colitis, and fibromyalgia. We currently have 39 provisional patents filed in this respect. We currently have engaged in research activities with 4 universities, 4 leading research institutes. We also have partnerships with 2 community colleges and are in discussion with other universities, colleges, and hospitals across Canada. And one particular aspect of C45 I would like to specifically address this afternoon is our concern about the development of outdoor commercial cultivation in Canada. In this respect, I would like to echo the words of the Honourable Benoit Bourque, Minister of Health in New Brunswick, who appeared before this committee May 9th. We believe that outdoor cultivation is problematic in a number of ways, significantly increased the potential for diversion of cannabis to the illicit market. Outdoor cannabis cultivation will not be nearly as secure as our current indoor and greenhouse production facilities. The number and small size of these operations will make outdoor cultivation unregulatable. Construction of secure, clean, safe indoor grow facilities, including buildings and greenhouses which operate under the strict regimes of Health Canada enforcement, are much better suited to the long-term interests of the sector. Although canopy growth would succeed and benefit in the short term, operating outdoor cultivation sites in the long term, they would not be sustainable because of the conditions under which the product would be grown. And finally, the quality is likely to be suspect. Restricting the cultivation to cannabis to indoor facilities, both greenhouse and buildings, will ensure a safe and secure production environment. We strongly support the introduction of a new category of micro-cannabis producers. Canopy Growth has recently allocated $1 million of capital towards investing and supporting micro-growers indoor. Finally, the future moving forward is a legal framework for adult use of cannabis. I want to also take this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to medical customers. Our focus has evolved to include a focus on recreational, but Canopy will always work to supply the medical market. We've committed that any patient who is a patient on or before July 1st, 2018 will receive priority over future recreational customers. Patient supply should not be jeopardized for recreational sales opportunities. In conclusion, thank you for your time. I hope I've been able to give you a little introduction and look forward to answering your questions as we go forward.
Thank you very much. Our final panelist before we get into questions from senators will be Dr. Terry Lake, hydropothecary.
Je suis très heureux d'être ici.
Hello, all. I'm very happy to be here with you. I am Terry Lake, and I am Vice President, Corporate Social Responsibility at Hydropothecary. I'm learning French. I'm the prior Minister of Health in BC and also an ex-mayor of Kamloops. As I said, I'm learning French, but I'm not very good at it yet, at speaking it, so I will revert to English for the remainder of my presentation. Thank you for your understanding.
I'd like to first acknowledge someone who's not here, but my good friend, Senator Nancy Green-Rain, who just recently retired, and the tremendous contribution she made to Canada. Senator Green-Rain was a constituent of mine for 8 years when I represented Kamloops North Thompson in the BC legislature. We worked on a number of healthy living initiatives together. We have had many in-depth policy discussions when I was Environment Minister and Health Minister, and as you can imagine, most of those were in airports. I should say at the outset that the doctor in front of my name is a doctor of veterinary medicine. So if you have any questions about why your cat is vomiting, I'd be happy to answer those afterwards. Our company, Hydropothecary, is based in Gatineau, Quebec, with production facilities in Massanger, just 30 minutes from downtown Ottawa. We have executive offices also in Hull. We employ close to 150 people and hope to double that number in the next year. We have served medical cannabis patients across Canada for 3 years and are a trusted partner of the Société Québécoise du Cannabis as the preferred supplier of adult-use cannabis products. We are working closely with the SQDC to develop detailed information of all of our products so that potential customers will have sufficient information to consume our products in a responsible fashion. Hydropothecary has received numerous awards for our innovative products that offer patients non-smoked cannabis that we believe is a much healthier method of consumption. As mentioned, I served as the British Columbia Minister of Health from 2013 until 2017. While health ministries have many issues, the fentanyl crisis was a top priority for most of that time. While many public health initiatives implemented in those years have no doubt saved many lives, the tragic fact is that today and every day, 4 British Columbians will die from an illicit drug overdose. The Canadian Public Health Association recognized our North American leading efforts to combat the fentanyl crisis, and many jurisdictions across Canada have implemented similar policies. Our ministry was also very proud of other public health initiatives like the Smoking Cessation Program that helped reduce rates of smoking to an all-time low in BC. I mention this to demonstrate my strong advocacy of public health. I firmly believe that Bill C-45, creating a regulated adult-use cannabis framework, will produce positive public health outcomes for Canadians, and I believe these fall into 3 categories. Firstly, removing criminal organizations from an existing and robust illegal cannabis market will reduce harms related to violent activities used to control that market and also eliminate the negative health consequences that occur when someone is handed a criminal record. Many studies have demonstrated that employment opportunities are severely limited by a criminal conviction, even for a minor offense, and I'm sure you're very aware that income is an important social determinant of health. Secondly, a non-controlled commodity will be replaced by products that are subjected to stringent quality controls and accurate information regarding the strength of active ingredients. This will ensure molds, pesticides, and other potential contaminants that can be extremely harmful will be eliminated, and consumers will be better able to gauge the effects of the product on their system. And of course, it's very individualized for every person. Finally, there is a growing body of evidence that in U.S. states in which cannabis has been legalized, there is an associated reduction in opioid prescriptions, in overdose deaths, and also in alcohol sales. In fact, some alcohol companies have recognized the legalization of cannabis as a potential risk to their financial outlooks. Given the tremendous public health harms associated with alcohol, which are widely recognized as far greater than cannabis, this may prove to be a very good outcome of this legislation. I know there are some concerns over the timing of the implementation of Bill C-45, but Canada has had a legalized medical cannabis system in place for over 18 years, and the transition to an adult-use, non-medical regime, I do not believe, is a very big leap. Changes in public policy often have some bumps along the road, but in my experience, these can be identified and dealt with in an iterative fashion. I know from my many visits to Washington State, where my mother-in-law has a residence, that cannabis legalization did not cause significant social problems, and policy changes such as tax adjustments were able to mitigate those challenges that were identified. In conclusion, I've learned a great deal about cannabis in the last 4 years, and I am convinced that Bill C-45 is good public policy that will benefit our country and its citizens. Thank you, merci, for having me here today to participate in this committee.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all four of you. Just before I go to my colleagues, I want to clarify one thing, because 3 of the 4 of you mentioned outdoor cultivation, but I take it you're just talking about the large commercialized cultivation as opposed to the homegrown, or are you lumping that all together as well? I'll ask Mr. Rewak.
Our concern is specific to large-scale outdoor cultivation on a commercial scale, which would be not relevant to home use. So if someone's got 2 plants in their backyard, that's not the issue we're concerned with.
Okay. The mayor may have another view on, no, he doesn't. Okay.